Could people please take their seats so that we can make a start? Because we've got quite a lot of business to get through this morning. So I would like to open the fourth business session of this General Assembly. Before we move to our next greeting, two housekeeping points. One is an important correction to the app. We understand the app is showing this afternoon as committee meetings, but it is actually a business meeting. So we've got this business meeting, straight after lunch we've got another business meeting, and then at 4:30 we've got the third of the business meetings today. The app is in the process of being reprogrammed to tell you the right thing. The committees will be meeting after evening prayer this evening. So it is not committees this afternoon, it's business meeting this afternoon for the reports of the Finance Committee and the Strategy and Policy Committee. So in this case, wait for the app to be reprogrammed and then believe it. Don't believe it yet. The second thing is to say there will be buses to dinner tonight. There's lists for those who are, some are on buses at 7 o'clock, straight after evening prayer. Some are on buses at 7:45. So there are lists in the lobby. If you're not on a committee, then the lists are alphabetical by first name. So check that to see which bus you're on. And if as many people who are on the 7 o'clock buses as possible could be on those buses, that would be a real help. So we now move to our greeting. KEC is a strong organisation in part because of the strong networks it has working together with ecumenical partner organisations such as Comeci and CPCE. We're very grateful that we have representatives from both of those in to this assembly. The Comeci representative greeted us yesterday because he's unable to be with us today. But we are very grateful to the General Secretary of the Communion of Protestant Churches in Europe, the Reverend Dr. Mario Fischer, who is going to address the Assembly.
Dear sisters and brothers in Christ, full days lie behind us. Days full of impressions, full of discussions, and today and tomorrow, full of decisions. Some work has to be done not only for those who are members of committees who have to work today and maybe tonight. Thank you very much for inviting me to your assembly and giving me the opportunity to greet you. I speak for the Communion of Protestant Churches in Europe and also convey to you the greetings of our Executive President, Reverend Dr. John Bradbury, who is also present at this assembly as a delegate of the United Reformed Church. The CPCE unites 95 Protestant churches, which grant each other church communion through a Loinberg agreement. Lutheran, Reformed, United, and Methodist churches, Waldensians, Czech Brethren, and Hussites. This year we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Loinberg Agreement. Today we live church communion as a communion in worship, in the joint celebration of the Lord's Supper, in pulpit and table fellowship. We live church communion as a communion in doctrine, in common theological reflection for our respective contexts. We live church communion as a communion in witness and service, in acting together and responsibly giving testimony how we should live for the good of our society. And we live church communion as a communion that is evolving in shape, by seeking appropriate forms to organize our communion and our churches. As a communion, we pursue three aims. We deepen our church communion, we promote church unity, and we serve society. We deepen our church communion, we promote church unity, and we serve society. 20 years ago, we changed our name from Leuenberg Church Fellowship to CPCE, Communion in Europe. In doing so, we made clear that Europe is the sphere of action in which God has placed us. In Europe, we are various Christian key players. CEC is currently in the process of strategically repositioning itself, especially to develop its European policy competences in the field of church advocacy. I am glad that we are in close contact on these issues, especially since our constituencies are overlapping. Almost all our member churches of CPCE are also members of CEC, and our member churches have a right to expect that we will consult with each other and thus not duplicate work and use our resources responsibly. And I can assure you that Jürgen and I consult regularly. Since the chances for the churches to be heard by the European institutions are greater if we speak with a common voice, we as Protestant churches in Europe are very hesitant to speak out alone. What can be said together with the other church families should be said together, and the mediation on these issues lies with CEC. The decision of the governing board of CEC to close the Strasbourg office has caused irritation among many of our member churches. The Strasbourg office was jointly maintained by CEC and the Conference of Churches on the Rhine, a regional group of CPCE. We are convinced that there is still a need for a church representative and church presence at the Council of Europe on the ground in Strasbourg. Thus, CPECE has applied for the participatory status of an international NGO at the Council of Europe. The CPCE regional group will be entrusted with the work on the ground. We hope that in this way we can continue to ensure short routes to the Council of Europe that focuses on human rights, the rule of law, and democracy. With regard to questions of freedom of religion and belief, we hope that we can intensify our good cooperation on ethical issues with the European Baptist Federation in this way, since our Baptist sisters and brothers advocate for religious freedom since their very beginning and have professional competence in this field. We hope that CEC can also benefit from the Protestant office at the Council of Europe. Nevertheless, the core competence of CPCE lies in substantial theological work. We have a lot of good theological study results. However, as with almost all ecumenical texts, their reception in the churches is very slow. That is why we are concentrating in the current term of office on promoting the reception of some documents. The document Theology of Diaspora is at the center of this. It was adopted by the General Assembly in Basel in 2018 and asked what we can learn from minority churches, what it means to be church. And it shows minority churches are rich in relationships, locally, internationally, ecumenically. Minority churches are involved in their society. They cannot be self-sufficient. Since they have no privileges, they have to convince with good arguments and exemplary action. The aim of the document is to support churches in Europe in reflecting theologically upon their minority situation, which is perhaps only just happening. in order to enable them to grasp the opportunities and possibilities this presents for being church together as followers of Jesus Christ in the world. We have made a small brochure out of the thick academic study, which I recommend to you, Rich Relationships, the joint task of the church as diaspora. I also have some copies with me in English and in German. The French version is also already sent out to our member churches, and you can also download all the versions at our website. In the next year, we as CPCE will hold our General Assembly in Sibiu, Romania, under the motto, "In the light of Christ, called to hope." The motto points us to our calling as Christians. It's a calling to hope. A vocation that makes us look at the world and our fellow human beings in the light of Christ. That makes us step out of the doors to proclaim together a liberating message of Jesus Christ and to act in the world. Herewith, I would like to express the invitation to our General Assembly. Dear Jürgen, it would be a pleasure for us to welcome you in Sibiu next year. Dear sisters and brothers, as churches in Europe, we need spaces to come together, to come into discourse and to articulate common positions. We need spaces to get to know each other and to overcome the perspectives from our respective national and denominational bubbles. We need spaces to come together in prayer and to ask for getting a clue of God's perspective on our continent. The Conference of European Churches provides such spaces. Therefore, I'm very grateful to you for allowing me to be part of this assembly. Thank you very much indeed.